The thing they worry about is not the inspection of existing sites. They worry about the covert. That's what scares them.
And that is, frankly, the worry, because there's existing sites that are the uranium sites. There was the existing site, which was the heavy water plutonium reactor under construction. But all of us believe, look, if Iran were to try to break toward a nuclear weapon, they're not going to do it at the existing sites that are being inspected, where we already have good intel about what's going on there. They're going to do it in a covert program. And so it was very important, as the White House said from the start, to try to cut off a path under all these, you know, under the uranium path, under the plutonium path, but especially under the covert path. The inspections regime, sort of as it is described in the talking points, now we're going through the agreement to see if it matches the talking points, is an inspections regime that can go anywhere. It can't go anywhere immediately, and that's going to be the subject of a lot of analysis. You heard the Supreme Leader say a few weeks ago, no way they're going to go into Iranian military facilities. Well, if they had kept that up, then the deal would have been completely fallen apart, because it's a non-starter. So now under the deal, there is the possibility to do inspections anywhere, but you have to give some advance notice. If the Iranians object, there is a committee that's basically the P5+1 that has to say, okay, we agree or we don't agree. And what is being reported is that process from we want to inspect to going in could take as much as 24 days. We need to ask the experts, what does that mean? Does that mean that in 24 days they could, you know, clean up evidence that there was nuclear material and completely obscure it? Or will experts say, no, nuclear material leaves a footprint with a half-life of 1 billion years or so. If they were using nuclear material in any site and you got in 24 days later, you would definitely know whether they were trying to do something contrary to the agreement. So these are the kinds of technical details that we really have to dig into in the committee. And again, a good agreement is still not good enough if the inspections regime isn't robust enough. And so that's going to be where a lot of the focus will be.
Here's what it sounds like to me from you, that you have heard what the administration has said. You're in the process of reading it. If after reading it, it delivers what the administration says, you'd be inclined to support it.
Actually, I'll put one more caveat on it. You're close. And here's what I said. When the April 2 framework was announced, that had many of these components in it, the concessions were giving up 98% of enriched uranium, 2/3 of centrifuges. When it was announced, I said, if there is a final deal that is an essential match for that framework, and if there is an inspections regime that is robust enough to make sure that those commitments can be verified, then yes, I think this could be in the best interest of America's national security. So there are two things that I'm doing right now. I'm going through the 100+ pages in the appendices to determine whether the details match the talking points, and I'm doing independent work, as are all my colleagues, to determine whether the inspections regime is sufficient, that the commitments will in fact be verified. Those are the two questions that I'm digging into.
Do you believe that there are members of Congress who now are inclined not to support this, but seeing the evidence as described by the President? Because the President firmly believes this will prevent Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. Do you believe that people are prepared to listen to the testimony, listen to the administration, listen to the experts, and vote for this? That's a possibility.
Yeah, very, very good question. And my answer is, I sure hope so. Because I would hate to think that on a matter this important, people made a snap judgment or a snap pronouncement before they even read the deal, and they're uninterested in the details. And my one bit of evidence that gives me some hope that that may be true is you saw a whole lot of members of Congress come out against the interim negotiation when it started in November of 2013. And again, some of the quotes, a historic mistake, Iran got everything they wanted, America lost in this. A whole lot of people made those kind of statements right out of the gate, who have subsequently said, you know what, actually, the interim period was significantly better than what we had before. We've had a series of hearings in the Foreign Relations Committee, and I've asked every witness who's been before us, Hawk, Dove, and everything in between, has this period of negotiation been significantly better than the status quo ante before the diplomacy started in November of 2013, and without exception, everybody has said yes.
Because of the way the process was written, do you expect it to be an agreement that will go into effect?
This is appropriate, Charlie. It is appropriately deferential to the White House, because remember, the White House was taking the position we don't want to have any congressional review, because the sanction statutes themselves gave the president a unilateral ability to waive or suspend the sanctions. And so the president said, so I don't need a vote of Congress. Well, those of us who thought that was wrong said, you know what, you might not under the existing sanction statute, but we're going to pass a new law that gives you the ability to conduct diplomacy and get the best deal you can, but that sets up an appropriate congressional review if you decide you want to waive or suspend sanctions. So basically what we did is we put a hurdle in the president's place, we put a hurdle in the place of this deal that wasn't there before. And if the president gets over that hurdle, then the deal will go forward. Now, down the road, remember, what Iran wants finally is they want the congressional sanctions to be eliminated completely, not just waived or suspended. For that to happen, Congress has to affirmatively vote in both houses to dismantle the statute. That will likely not be for some years down the road while we test their compliance, just as there are some provisions in the deal that Iran doesn't have to implement for some years down the road as they test the compliance of the P5+1 with respect to sanctions relief.
Senator Kaine, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Glad to be with you.
Senator Tim Kaine from Virginia. Back in a moment. Stay with us.